This is how you merge two photos and add them to a background. This background is a lot larger than we need, but we'll worry about cropping it later. I've downloaded two photos from two different students from my first period class. So I'm going to select all three of them, and then I'm going to Control-click on one of them and choose Open with Adobe Photoshop. We're using CS6 in this case. So I've got all three of my photos, Vanessa, Jade, and this really cool background I found. This background is really large, and it's not in the right proportions. I'm going to cut off about this much of it. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to tap the letter C. That gives me my crop marks. You can't really see them really well, but if you move your cursor to the side of the screen, you'll notice the double arrow. So I'm moving it to the top of the screen, and I'm going to take off this bit here, and I'm just going to ballpark it to make it look like a portrait. After I've selected the size, I'm going to hit Enter or Return on my keyboard, and it's going to set that in place. Then I'm going to save this image, File, Save As. I'm going to leave it as a Photoshop and call it MergeBuddy _a student. Please make sure this is your first initial and your last name. And then I'm going to put the period number, whether it's second period, sixth period, or seventh period. And then I'm going to save it. I've already created a folder on my computer that's called MergeBuddy. It has the same naming convention, except this has .psd, so I can tell that this is a Photoshop document. Then I'm going to save it. In a later video I will show you how to resize this, but for the time being I'm going to hold the Command key down and hit the 0 on my keyboard to make it full screen, or at least larger. The next thing I'm going to do is go to one of my photos. I'm going to select everything by doing Command A and copying this, Command C. The other way to do that is to go to Edit, Copy, and then we're going to do Edit Paste into this file here, or Command V. Notice how large this is. I'm doing Command minus or Command hyphen on my keyboard. This is just a little portion of that photo, and I want to resize this down, so I'm going to hold the Command key down and tap the letter T on my keyboard to get the Transform menu. I'm holding my Shift key down on the keyboard, and I'm clicking and dragging from the corner until the photo gets much smaller. Even though you still can't see the photo, I've let go of the Shift key, and I'm going to drag this up here into this window and hit Command 0 again. Since I want to see a lot of the background in here, but not so much that I can't see the details of the faces, I'm going to hit Command minus and make these just a little bit larger, because I want her face to fill up most of the frame, because her face is the most important part of this. I'm using the space bar every so often to move the image view around. So I want to see a little bit of the top of her head, down to her shoulders. It's about centered in the photo. And then I'm going to double click on the photo, which will set it in place at that size. Now there are some issues with this photo that we'll deal with in a couple of minutes, but if you notice her head is tilted slightly this way. That's only going to be a small problem. The other problem, when we look at the other photo here, is that Vanessa's wearing glasses. So I'm going to do Command A, select all, copy it, Command C. Again, you can go to Edit, Copy, I'm going to click on this tab and paste it, Command V. If the keyboard command doesn't work, just go up to the Edit menu and do Paste. Again, this image is very large relative to the size of the background, so I'm going to do Command minus. Command T. T stands for transform. I'm going to hold my cursor on the corner, hold down the Shift key on the keyboard, and again I'm going to reduce this down until her face is about as large as I want it in the frame and about centered. Remember to always hold the Shift key down when you're resizing, otherwise it will skew the image or mess up the proportions. So I'm going to get her face about how I want it in the picture, and then again I'm going to double click and do Command 0 to get it full screen again. If you turn these layers on and off, you'll notice there's a lot of differences between these two faces. I'm going to use this one because her face is in the correct dimensions, and also I'm seeing that her head is positioned the way that it ought to be in the photo. Looking straight forward, not tilted one way or the other. Her chin isn't down or up, so her forehead and her chin are about the same distance from the camera. In order to line these two pictures up, I'm going to hold the Command key down and tap the letter R to get the rulers. What the rulers allow you to do is it allows you to put guidelines on here that won't actually print on the paper. So I'm going to pull a guideline down from the top ruler, and all I did was position my cursor inside the ruler and then click and drag down right to where her hairline is, to the middle of her eyes, to the middle of her nose, to the middle of her mouth, and right at the bottom of her chin. That gives me all of the positions that I'm going to line up the other photo with in just a moment. Then I'm going to do the same thing on this side by clicking and dragging from the ruler to right where her ear meets the side of her cheekbone, very center, right down the middle of her nose, and on this side where her earlobe and her cheek meet again. If you need to adjust any of these lines, hold the Command key down and you'll notice the cursor changes into a double yellow line, or excuse me, a double line. And then I can drag it a little bit more closely so that I have right where her jawline meets her ear. I'm going to save this. It's already saved under the name, so all I have to do is hit save again. So the name is correct. I can close these two documents because I won't need them anymore. Save them in your Google Drive just in case you make a mistake. Then I'm going to turn off this layer so that I can see Jade. And again, you'll notice there's going to be a bit of a problem because her face is tilted, or her head is tilted to one side. The way to fix that is to do Command minus a couple of times. Command T for transform. Make sure you have the right layer selected. The reason nothing happened was because I had this layer selected even though it's turned off. Command T. If I wanted to scale this, notice when I move my cursor over the corner, it turns into a double arrow. If I keep going a little bit further, it'll change into a curved arrow. This allows me to click and drag so that I can align her face in the position that I need it in. And if you need to fine-tune it, just move to a different corner. I want her face straight up and down, or her head that is, and then I'm going to move this over a bit so that it's centered. Her chin is almost in the exact position that I need it in, but where her hairline is, it is not. So I'm going to hit Command minus one more time so that I can grab this top right control point. And then I'm going to stretch this by holding the Shift key down and clicking and dragging until I get the photo lined up where her hairline is, and then again back down to where her chin is touching the bottom line. You might have to go back and forth a couple of times, and you might have to zoom out just a little bit more. The reason we're aligning the features is so that when we start doing the next step, everything will be in place. If you want to fine-tune this as far as the position goes, use the arrow keys on your keyboard and just move it up and down, left and right, until you have it in the right spot. And then hit the return key, and it will set it in place. Command 0 gives me full screen again. And then I can turn off these lines, the blue lines, by holding the Command key down and hitting the colon, which is right next to the letter L on the keyboard. That turns them on and off. Even though her head is touching the top of the screen here, I'm going to leave that alone for now. And then I will notice that the positions of the eyes are about in the right place. The proportions of their heads are slightly different. Vanessa has a little bit more of a long face, whereas Jade's face is a little shorter. That's okay, we'll deal with that later. For now, I'm going to double click where it says Layer 2, label this Vanessa, double click Layer 1, label this Jade, and then do Command S for save again. The next thing I'm going to do is add layer masks to this layer and this layer. So I'm going to click on Vanessa's layer and add a layer mask by clicking this icon at the bottom of this palette. And I'm going to do the same thing for Jade. Then I'm going to turn Vanessa's image off, preview, and only work with Jade's layer mask. I'm going to tap the letter E to get the eraser, or come over here and click on the eraser tool. Remember, you can increase and decrease the size of the eraser by tapping the bracket tool, which is right next to the letter P on your keyboard. And I'm just going to start erasing to the background. I'm not going to worry about fine-tuning this just for the purpose of this video, because you've already done this on other assignments. After I've got this mostly how I want it, I can turn on Vanessa's layer again and do the same thing, making sure that I click on her layer mask and coming over here. You can already start to see that Vanessa's hair is not as wide as Jade's, and I'm going to erase from both sides, holding the Command key down, Command minus, to get more of this on the top. And then, just like in some of the previous assignments, I'm going to start removing half of one face so that I have half of Vanessa's face and half of Jade's face. So what I'm doing is merging these two together to make one person. Obviously, you're going to have to fine-tune some things like the hair. Remember that to reverse this, you can either click on this double arrow, or you can hit the letter X on your keyboard, and it will reverse these two. So that when black is in front, I can bring the image back. When white is in front, I can take the image away. Because Vanessa is wearing glasses in here, I'm going to go ahead and put the glasses back in. You're going to have to play with this in this particular image specifically for that reason. I'm just tapping the X key so that I can get Jade's hair with Vanessa's glasses. As much as possible, I want to have Jade's eye in Vanessa's glasses. So that's Jade's eye in Vanessa's glasses. The easier way to do this would have been to have Vanessa take her glasses off. Obviously there's some work that needs to be done over here still. If you want to, you can have a combination of whatever way you want to do this with regards to the hair. So you can completely cover up Jade's hair and only have Vanessa's, or vice versa. Might be kind of fun in this particular instance to have Jade's hair, since it goes all the way around, and not have any of Vanessa's hair. But again, that's something that you can fine-tune as you go. The last thing we're going to do to this is I want this canvas to be a specific size. So I'm going to go to Image, Image Size, and this is currently 1600 pixels. I'm going to make it 1000 pixels, so that it ends up being 1000 by 602, and click OK. Then I'm going to save it again as a Photoshop file, and that's the file that I'm going to upload to Google Classroom and Google Drive. So have fun with this. You can do various combinations. I do want to see at least half of one face, even if you put details like the eyes into the glasses and overlap the glasses or overlap the hair. Just have fun with it. Remember, you've already saved this, so all you have to do is hit Command S and it will save it again before turning it in.